How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Man, you look good. I don't say that enough.
Troop Smooch and the Dog Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dog Show.
The one and only.
Your hosts, Troop Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dog Show with Troop and Smooch. And we are glad to be back tonight. It is the off-season, talking season. And there's a lot of stuff going on with Georgia football, Georgia spring practice, Georgia baseball, Georgia basketball.
Come on.
It's a wild season. Me and Smooch are tying some stuff together for an epic trip this summer. We're going to talk a little bit about. You can might see I'm back. If you know where we usually our podcast from, I'm back in the Alaska room here at the Casa de Brenson.
Yes.
And just getting in that mindset because Smooch, we've kind of solidified some plans for the summer as Smooch and Amy have locked their airfare in to go to Alaska with us this year.
Yeah, you know, it's we should probably mention that, right? Troop married an Alaskan girl, and we go back there. We try and go each year. It's kind of you kind of regroup. Everything we did the last 18 months was pretty much planned in Alaska because you kind of you kind of reset the whole brain there and everything. It is an amazing place. We go there, and oddly enough, a lot of Dogs fans there, and they might not know who the Bulldogs are, but they admit to.
Dude, this past year, it was just me and Renee, and you can put a picture of Renee right here because she always corrects me. I say, "You're an Alaska native." She's like, "I am not native. Native means she's like, Inuit or Eskimo, what do you want to call it?"
Oh, that's right. They call them natives.
She's blonde hair, blue-eyed. She's half Costa Rican, believe it or not.
Yes.
But anyway. But so last year, me and her were there, and we went all the way down to Kenai Peninsula, all the way down to the bottom to the Homer Spit. And there's a place there, a bar that is epic.
If you've ever watched bar. Deadliest Catch, there you are. Yeah, it
is Homer. Yeah, and there's the bar there is called the Salty Dog.
Come on,
and it is amazing. But as we're driving by in the RV, a guy walks out of the Salty Dog with a red Georgia Bulldog t-shirt. I'm like,
that's beautiful.
What? Are you kidding me? I'm like blowing the horn, like, go Dogs. He's like, well, who's calling me? I was like, are you kidding me? We're way down here in one of the halibut capital of the world, really. The Homer Spit, Homer, Alaska, and I'm seeing a Georgia Bulldog fan. I'm trying to get parked so I can go talk to him, but it didn't work out that way. But
it's
anyway,
beautiful.
That's our plans. Yep.
Yeah. Coming up soon, yeah, and it's
it'll be late July. So
late July. It's what we do. Right. When we come back, it is we're straight dead red straight into the season at that point. When you get back from Alaska, it's time to go. So that's the reason it's timed out perfectly for our mental health coming into the Georgia Bulldogs football season.
I don't know if you folks know it, but me and Smooch really put a lot of there's a lot to us about men being men. And leading our lives that way, and leading our families that way. Our whole experience is a lot about. We're guys. We're that kind of dude, and so we travel. We do different things, and Alaska's a part of that. We go and we fish for a week on the salmon runs, and there are moose and bear and all that kind of stuff. Smooch has got him a new gun. Hopefully, he's going to come in there because we always carry it. You have to be prepared. Because a bear will walk in on you if you're
and take your fish away.
We'll take you, and maybe your wife.
Maybe your wife. Yeah.
Defend it. But yeah, so we that's part of us a lot is being able to do these type things, and of course we're big Georgia fans, and we want to bring that to you and let you know what we're all about. But getting more towards what you guys tuned in to hear about.
Yes.
Spring practice just started this week, and we're hearing some rumblings on how practice is going. You can always take that with a grain of salt, but if you're craved and for Georgia football and what's going on, this is some good information. We do want to also say, and I followed a Georgia baseball game today. Georgia's baseball team, 21-2.
21-2, brother.
Top 5 team, and their offense is spectacular.
Yeah.
They're hitting bombs, and they're behind in a lot of games, it seems, early on. Their starting pitching has struggled to kind of find their footing early on.
Right.
And they give it up some runs, but their offense always comes back. And 21-2, I don't care if your ERA is terrible. Your offense is doing some stuff, and hope they get the pitching taken care of. And then the basketball team as well. Just got a seed, number 9 seed, first time in quite some time that they are going to be dancing the March Madness in the NCAA tournament. They played Gonzaga in the first round. Be a tough game, but they're just so happy just to be involved.
Yeah, before you can be upset about your seeding in the tournament, you have to make the tournament.
You have to be there.
Right, and that's the thing that the basketball team did. Love seeing that because of the completion of Georgia sports. And when it comes to the baseball team, Troop, it is so almost relieving to me to see the Dogs pick up where they left off last year, because when you've got a player like they had last year, right?
Condon, yeah.
And when Condon leaving and the Dogs picking right back up, that's a really good thing to see.
Yep, Wes Johnson doing a great job with the baseball program,
Yes,
and Mike
he is.
White, of course, is what can you say? Georgia basketball back in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And Georgia actually beat I think Florida won the SEC championship today, the tournament. Mm-hmm. And Georgia's one of the teams that beat
their last loss,
Florida,
right? Isn't that right?
This year. Yeah, they took Florida out, and so good luck to those guys. We'll be tracking that and following it. It's a good time of year. The spring is coming. I've got stuff blooming in my yard. I got the azaleas and the dogwood starting to blossom, and so I'm excited about that. I got a couple of good days of. It's like this week's going to be so nice and sunny, so I'm going to do a lot of work.
I may have to put a picture up here. I don't know what kind of infestation of weeds I got. My entire front yard is purple wildflowers right now. I mean, it looks like something out of the Wizard of Oz or something. It's just purple wildflowers, the whole front yard. I've never planted a flower in my yard ever, and they're everywhere. I have no idea where they came from, and we're the only house on my street that has purple wildflowers in the yard, and it's our whole yard. So it looks great. I'm not changing it. I like the fact that I'm different than every other house.
Well, I had to tell my wife, and because we go out and do a little hike, a little walk, get your dogs out, and she sees all this stuff starting to sprout up and bloom, and she thinks the grass is growing. And I said, that's not grass. Grass really doesn't grow until the low is right around 60 degrees. And so I said, that's just weeds. She said, we're going to start cutting grass soon. I was like, no. It's just weeds. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but yeah, she thinks already gets 70 degrees a couple of days and everything's going to start. I'm like,
Wives just love giving men jobs. That is,
my goodness, and it's true. And we do a small garden, and I have to always rent. I don't own a tiller, so I have to rent a tiller.
Okay.
To till up all the ground that she wants to plant. Whatever makes her happy. I don't really care.
Whatever blonde white girls are planting this year.
Once I till it, it's hers. I don't care. It's her enjoyment. I'll till it and get it ready, and she can get her toes in the fresh tilled dirt and do everything she wants to do.
There's a country song in there somewhere.
Yeah. And I was just telling Smooch I went to because this is St. Patrick's Day weekend, I guess you'd call it. And me and the missus went to Dublin, Georgia last night.
Nice.
To hear, I think it was what's his name, Will Mosley.
Oh yeah.
And so he did a concert there in Dublin, Georgia, and it was spectacular. So it's a really good job, and we enjoyed hearing that. And a good time was had by all. So
crazy good stuff. I'm in North Alabama where St. Patty's Day passes no one notices, but I moved here from Savannah, Georgia, where
there's gonna be some idiots in Savannah tomorrow. Yes, on Monday.
Baby, St. Patrick's Day is a holiday in Savannah. The school shut down, the business is shut down, and it is 400,000 people piling into that tiny little town. It is nuts. And so, Amy and I were just talking. My wife, Amy, we were just talking about how crazy it is that we're not preparing for St. Patrick's Day. Quick St. Patrick's Day story for you. I got one real quick. So we got a call one time when we lived in Savannah, from a young lady that we knew. She's 10 years younger than Amy, a friend of Amy's, and she was getting married, and she wanted to do her bachelorette party in Savannah and do it during St. Patrick's Day. And so we said, sure, bring the whole party. So here I am sitting there trying to play Xbox like a normal middle-aged man, and my house is suddenly filled with these early 30, late 20-year-old bachelorette girls or, single girls that were getting ready to go out to do the thing on St. Patrick's Day down on River Street in Savannah. So I decide, I'm going to drive them down there. So I've got my wife and this group of younger girls. I drive them down there and drop them off. As soon as I do that, about 6 people approach my car and say, hey, we'll pay you $50 to drive us home. And I was like, heck yeah, get in. And so they hopped in and they gave me $50 and I drove them home. And I was like, huh. So I went back. I drove back to the same spot and sat there with my windows down. By the time the evening was over, I had made $500.
You were an Uber driver before
driving people home. This is before Uber ever existed. And I wasn't the only one that figured it out, but yeah, because the wait on taxi cabs was like 2.5 hours. And so I just drive down there and sit there with my windows open and drive people home. But that's my St. Patty's Day story.
Yeah. If the locals know that that's maybe not the time, unless they're business owners.
Yeah,
that's not the time to be around. In Savannah, you're gonna just hide out for that week.
Absolutely,
a little nuts. And so, just for reference, Mooch, you're Macon, born and bred, raised in Macon, then moved to Savannah, and now in Huntsville. Correct?
That is right. Yeah, I was in Macon until I was 29. Moved to Savannah, was there 12 years, and I've been in Huntsville now for, can you believe this, 13 years.
It's ridiculous,
I
yes.
have been in Huntsville. That is wild stuff.
Yep. Smooch moved to Huntsville right as we stopped our national level of wiffle ball play right in 2013.
Yeah, right near the tail end of the wiffle ball career. Maybe some correlation there.
Yeah, another personal note. My son, I know Tyler's listening to the podcast, and
oh yeah, you about to be a granddaddy again.
Again, yes, they're in Macon right now. We've got her in bed rest in Macon, and the next couple of days they're expecting to deliver young Riggs Brinson. And so welcome another Brinson to the fold as he's the first, because we already got Sailor, and Sailor was a girl, of course, and then my first first boy grandkids. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun.
Another
and I pray
DGD,
for those guys,
man.
is because that second kid is always a difference maker. That's a game changer when you get two.
Bill Cosby used to say, if you have one child, you're not really a parent. You got to have 2 or more before you understand. So.
Yeah. So you guys be thoughtful about that, what we got going on with our group, and we appreciate everything. We know you guys have been missing us a little bit, and it's been kind of the off season, and we're kind of working through a lot of things. There's so much that goes on that kind of sometimes it can derail us for a day or two. Anyway,
but it's great to hear from you guys, though. It is. We had no idea. We had no idea that we mattered in people's lives, So it's been great to hear from you guys, and just hey, even when you ask, hey, where's the next show coming out? We miss you guys. That's awesome. Sometimes we can't believe you know our names, so it's fantastic.
Yeah. So. Spring practice started this week, and I think the dogs are motivated. We always feel that way. Most teams will feel that because we see on social media everybody's fan bases, because we always say this, hope springs eternal. And in spring, that's when everybody's got you got a perfect record, and there's nothing. Everything is a possibility. Potential is boundless.
Yeah. But
with Georgia, I think we keep hearing these players pop up in some of the interviews, especially some of the outgoing players, and say, well, we still do it at Georgia like nobody else.
That's
true. Practice like nobody else. The standard is, and especially with players who have been to different programs, they said the standard at Georgia is different. And we go through a lot different than I have in other places. And so you hear those guys saying, we're looking forward to this new group and a season where Georgia didn't meet quite their standards, and we can talk about the different reasons why, and we will. But it's always good to hear these guys talk about what the expectations are, some of the new players they've seen coming in. But also, I mean, they have been very pointed. I've heard a couple of different players being very pointed in why they thought that things didn't go the way most Georgia fans thought, and they felt like maybe it was internal in terms of just execution offensively and specifically, and in some leadership issues, and maybe it's just things that we haven't always seen. And when you got new crops of players, and those things don't always mesh together, and so you're never going to just win every. I mean, winning's great, and Georgia wins their share of games. But in terms of winning championships, you're not going to just run off a string of 4 or 5 or 6, in a row. But they pointed the finger at a few things, and we hope that the coaching staff. We know the coaching staff knows. But then ultimately the players have to figure that out in terms of leadership. And then we mentioned this on a few podcasts ago with Coach Hayes, is that the offensive line was one of the biggest problems last year. And we feel like the squeaky wheel is going to get the oil or the grease, however you say it. Yeah. And the offensive line, we're seeing some names pop out for them. They're going to be a lot better and give that offense a chance to cover.
I think so too. And I think that the troubling thing, the fact that Tate and Wilson showed up at the combine and did so well was more troubling to me. You know what I'm saying? For the way the offensive line played, like the fact that some of the best athletes at their position going into this draft played on the Georgia Bulldogs offensive line, yet they had numerous, as they say, as Tate Ratledge says, right? Execution, just shortcomings and failures. That part is shocking to me. And so whereas the rest of the team, like the offense being unspectacular, that is very easy to hang on Carson back, especially when you're watching all the nonsense in his life right now and the craziness. That's really easy. But when you talk about a leader like Tate Ratledge and you talk about an offensive line that was not tuned into the game as much as they should have been, that part is puzzling to me. But it seems to me that there is a very cerebral approach. One of the things I love about Kirby Smart teams, Troop Brinson, is the players never don't know what the problem is. They know they can articulate it, and then they can attack the problem rather than just pointing fingers, which you almost never hear.
Yeah, they always point at themselves. We should have been better. Yeah. And we had higher expectations, and there's a multitude of reasons why that didn't work out. And you can say those guys in the combine had great combines, but maybe they weren't always the issue. It doesn't take but one player.
That's true.
And you can rotate that player from one player to another on a series or a drive or a game, messing up on the offensive line. And we know the usual suspects. We don't have to call those guys out who maybe just were messing up here and there and just kind of caused a lot of consistency issues with that line. It only takes one to blow up a play, or to have your quarterback get pressured, or to have your running back get hit in the backfield. It only takes one. And that happened too often. I do think that I don't expect that to be a problem again this year because there's so much talent there. I really think the focus is going to be, no, it's not happening again. I just trust Kirby Smart's coaching staff that much. Yeah. And there were lots of issues with the offense, and whether it was the offensive line or the wide receivers with a record number of drops, or whether it was Carson Beck having a slump in the middle of the year for whatever reason, or if you just think Bobo was not that guy. There's lots of blame to go around, but that's the trust I have in Kirby Smart to fix those things and to put the attention where it needs to go, point the spotlight where it needs to go as well. And I just kind of I trust those things. Thank you, dear. Mom's bringing me some Girl Scout cookies. It looks like some Thin Mints.
Oh my gosh, man! You're gonna get above your playing weight there. Be careful.
Yeah. So I trust the Kirby Smart coaching staff, and and Kirby Smart says he said it last week that I have the best coaching staff in the country. And how can you prove him wrong? Yeah. He's not saying that we won the championship last year. He said I got the best group, the best coaching staff in the country, and we did see. One of the big news that has come out in the past couple of weeks we haven't covered yet is people were questioning whether Mke Bobo was going to be the offensive coordinator because
you didn't question it, but everybody else did.
I questioned it. I just hedged my bet towards he was going to be there, especially since you guys said maybe not. But even Buck Bellew came out a couple months ago and said he's leaving. He's got health issues, and
Right.
he just pointed it as it was fact, and that was not a true story. Sorry, Buck, but not true. And we did read that there was an extension for Bobo, and it happened before the end of the season. I mean, it happened, I think, before his contract ran out. An extension runs through the next 2 years through 2026.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's what I say, Dogs fans. Listen to me here. The extension, whether you agree on whether Mike Bobo should be the OC or shouldn't, the extension is the right call.
Yeah.
If you think Bobo should have been fired at the end of the season, or if you think Bobo should have been retained after the season, the extension is the right thing to do either way, because the one thing Kirby Smart knows is how to lead. You talked about him saying he has the best staff in football. That is a man that knows how to lead people. He knows how to make people fiercely loyal to him because he's fiercely loyal to them. Loyalty always creates loyalty. And if Kirby Smart is not going to fire Bobo and they're not going to move on, then double down. Double down on the faith you have. If you really have faith in him, show us, which is exactly what he did. So is there a lot riding on this season for Bobo? I would say probably yes, right? But is the extension the right thing to do for morale, for leadership, for the team in general? 100%. If he's your guy, show him he's your guy. Don't leave him tepid. Don't leave him wondering and asking questions. Leave no doubt in his mind that he's your guy. That's how you lead. And those are the tough, and I mean tough decisions that leaders have to make in these positions. So, I thought Bobo was going to be gone. Coach Hayes, I believe, thought Bobo was going to be gone. Troop said he thinks he'll stay. But I would say, from coach's perspective, my perspective, your perspective, the extension is the right thing to do, Troop Brinson.
Well, yes, because it takes away that question mark where people are kind of looking at you and asking all these questions during the season. And but the fact that happened, that Coach Smart evaluated everything and wanted to keep him here for a couple more years. That's all I need to know. Yep. To me, that meant that he really believes, and since I believe in Coach Smart, he really believes that the issues were more personnel related. They were more execution related. And we just pointed some of those things out with the offensive line, with Carson Beck, with the wide receivers. I mean, those are pretty important components of your offense. And I've heard people say in the past couple of weeks that follow it and know how to know what the playbook looks like, who still say that Bobo is still running Monken's offense. It's still, if you okay, we just had Monken for a couple years, for 3 years, and we won 2 national. If you look at those busts, right? If you look at those busts and you look at those drops, those are Monken plays. It's just that McConkey and Bowers weren't dropping the ball. They weren't missing. Washington wasn't missing blocks. And you don't have to believe in Bobo. You don't have to believe in Searles. You don't have to believe in T-Rob. You believe in Kirby, and what Kirby says. 2 national championships, back-to-back, undefeated season. He's earned the right to get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I believe in Coach Smart, and you don't have to as a fan. You're free to question that and think that's a bad direction to go, and think he's doing it because Mike Bobo is his buddy. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
He likes to win too much. There's no way.
He is so focused on winning at the highest level possible. Have to publicly fire Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo would just say, I'm going to spend more time with my family and go a different route. It would never be Coach Smart axing Bobo. It would come off a totally different way. That's the way you do these things. And he could have done that so nicely. If he thought that was an issue, it wouldn't have been the whole scene that a lot of fans want to make it out to be. It would have been Bobo. It was like, I just he would have had reasons, and we would have moved on with it, and he'd had somebody else. But he really believes that this is the right way to go for Georgia's team, their continuity and their offense. And I'm going to have to trust him. And,
it's time to get on board. It's done. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Yeah.
And let's just say, for perspective, I can go back and show you right now tweets and message board posts lamenting the fact that they brought Todd Monken back when they did, right before the 2 national championships occurred. There were the same type of posts. I'm not saying Bobo's Monken, but I'm saying we were posting the same thing on these message board sites after that first year with Monken.
Yeah, so we'll see. We're definitely all Georgia, and so we're gonna be optimistic about that. And if the results don't play out and the factors are, you can kind of figure out what the factors are. He doesn't. Eventually, there's a trend, and a pattern and all that, and we'll see how that plays out. I got faith in those guys.
Yeah.
So from spring practice,
yes,
and you sent me some stuff, Smooch. I don't know if you want to look at some of that.
Sure.
And I did find a few names that are already, and it's always new names. It seems like it's not guys that have been there a long time. We know the quarterback battle, how that's going to look. But it's just finding out those guys who are going to pop and going to make a name for themselves early in spring, because spring kind of sets up some of the depth chart and then moves into summer workouts and fall practice, and those things further decisions are made. But I think spring's a great time to kind of look at those, I guess, the depth chart, the too deep, as those players start to establish themselves, because it's really on the players. There's guys who have been in the system a year or two, and it's on them whether they're going to reshape their body, add good weight, add muscle, or clean up, or just become better football players. And so it's on those guys to take that next step and to earn that playing time.
Yeah.
And so that's a fun time. And you seen any names that's kind of jumped out so far?
Speaking of improved bodies, and I've heard this from no fewer than 3 people that have been to any of these practices. Janelle Aguero is as close to a defensive Megatron. If you remember that cat out of Georgia Tech that played for the Lions. Yeah. That he is, that Aguero absolutely, we shared a picture of him last year at about this time about how good Aguero looked. They said he looks even better. Physically, he's just cut up. He's taken it so seriously this year. And I've heard that, like I said, numerous times about Aguero.
Because Smooch, on Aguero, I think we were huge Aguero fans coming out of high school when Georgia signed him. We're like, oh, this dude he looks like a linebacker playing in a defensive backfield. We're huge Aguero fans. Yeah, he was up and down this past year. Yeah, maybe some was injury, but he was he looked kind of up and down.
He looked like a younger guy. I mean, he just had growing pains. He's a freak athlete. He's linebacker size now, though he plays safety and star, whatever. Yeah. And so it's just going to come down to he was caught thinking a lot last year, and rather than reacting, seeing the play and going. And there's a lot of plays where you thought Malachi Starks missed a play, or you thought Dalen Everett missed a play. It was really Janelle Aguero at the line of scrimmage missed the play. That happened more than a few times. But the fact that he has doubled or tripled down on his physical conditioning tells me he's probably spending that time on the mental aspect too, which is encouraging. And speaking of secondary, Troop Brinson, your cat out of Swainsboro is making all kinds of racket right now.
Well, because and I've heard it said that Dalen Everett, of course, has got one cornerback position locked down, and that other cornerback position is a competition between Daniel Jackson, who got a lot of playing time this year, Ellis Robinson, and DeMello Jones. And I'm confident.
Daniel Harris,
not Jackson. Yeah, Dan Jackson's going to the NFL.
Yes, he is.
He did run a 4.4. Just almost cracked that 4. He was close to cracking to the 4.3.
You're watching it right now because I pulled this video.
It is, his long jump was everything was
over
spectacular.
10. It looked great.
And so, but Daniel Harris and DeMello and then Ellis Robinson, the 4th. And that's why practice is important. And people that aren't at practice have their own opinions about players, and they get all in their head about who should be playing. I promise you that the coaching staff is going to put the players that can put them in the best position to succeed,
of course,
and who look the best in practice, who are the most efficient in practice and make the fewest errors and pick it up. And that's the same thing that I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I hear the same thing about Georgia and their quarterback positioning in the past.
Yeah.
Like, why did we do this? Why did this guy play? I'm like, these coaches want to win at the highest level.
Yes.
Your favorite player, they don't care. They don't care how many stars he came out of high school with. At any position, those stars are done. You have to perform at practice before these coaches will have confidence in you. You got to prove you can do it. And they give you time. They've done a great job of giving these all the players who have potential some time on the field, whether it's late in the game or whenever. You get out there, you do your job, you earn more playing time.
Yes.
And injuries happen, you earn more playing time, but you got to prove yourself in practice. What coach in any level that was worth anything would put a player who was substandard in practice, who was making error after error in practice and didn't deserve it? No coach is going to win anything
because they have 5 stars.
Because the media or a fan or fans were calling for this to happen. That's not reality. Not at this level. This is the highest level. And so no, not going to happen. So we anticipate that these guys who are all elite athletes.
Yes.
All 3 of those guys who are looking for, and the injuries happen too. So who knows? It's good to have depth. And that's why NIL can be such a problem, is that you don't have the depth that you want, because these guys that don't get the playing time, they're going somewhere else. Hopefully these guys stay around and provide depth. And but that's good depth to have. They're going to be here for this year. I don't think any of those guys are leaving after the spring. They could.
They could. We were at the spring game when Bear Alexander. We were sitting there we're in the
bookstore.
In the bookstore, yeah. Bear Alexander leaving, but with all of those, when you hear about players leaving or this happening and that happening, your first response is to say, "Oh, that's the coach's fault," and then they go somewhere and flame. Look, I have nothing against JT Daniels. As a matter of fact, I was screaming for JT Daniels when Stetson was playing.
Yes, we all were.
Put a guy with an
JT
NFL arm in the game. The dude that can NFL arm. And who was proven right? It wasn't us. It was Kirby Smart. JT Daniels, went and had a very lackluster remainder of his college career. And Stetson Bennett may end up starting this season. I really think you could see at least a few Stetson Bennett starts in the NFL this year. The coaches know. And so when it comes down to the secondary, don't get hung up. Look, Ellis Robinson was the number 1 defender in the country coming out of high school. I don't think he's the number 1 prospect on the Dogs right now, and that's okay. That's completely fine. Let's get the best players on the field. We said it time and time again. You take your best players, you put them in a room together, you let them beat each other down, strengthen each other. Iron sharpens iron, and then the best one walks out. That's your starter. But if you're playing in the SEC, the starters ain't making it the whole year. You're always going to be needed at some point.
All the time. And the good news is it looks like both of these guys, and if you were Ellis Robinson and you were heralded the way he was, and you come in and you're not playing very much, you would maybe have some questions. But to hear him talk, he understands that it's a process, and his process wants him to be the best. No matter what anybody else says, you want to tap into your own potential as an athlete. Mm-hmm. Nobody can tell you what that is. You can find that out by, pushing yourself and putting yourself against the best talent possible and physically. And so he wants to be the best version of himself by the time he leaves Georgia.
Right.
And if that's just his last year, his junior year, and he hits his peak at that point, and moves on to the NFL, that's just part of his experience and part of his process. You don't have. I think a lot of these guys stunt themselves when they jump from program to program. You got to
100%. Yes.
And so the players who are okay with saying it might be a 2 or 3 year process for me to become the best version of me as a player.
Yeah,
it's okay, and I like those guys. And you got to have those guys invest in your program. So I've been pleased to hear DeMello and Ellis Robinson both talking. It seems like both those guys feel that way.
They're saying all the right things, and it helps. This is a weird thing to say. it helps that Dalen Everett is slowed by a sports hernia right now. It's just more reps. You know what I mean? It's more opportunity. There's always, if a team is coached correctly, there is a silver lining to every mishap. And Dalen Everett being a little banged up is just getting more reps for these absolute sports cars you've got in the garage right now. And somebody's going to step up this year. This is year 3. This is year 3 for a lot of these players. It's year 4 for a lot of these players. This is the time where you take that big step. You never know who it's going to be. You can try and predict it, but you never know. But somebody does.
Well, Smooch, another name that's popped up. I'm actually surprised because when Georgia signed him, I was like, he's just depth. I even said that on the podcast. He's just a depth player. You know, he'll be if he wants to hang around, that's fine, but he won't be an upper echelon type skill player. And that's Bo Walker.
Yes.
And the running back room is a question. Even though we have a lot of belief in Nate Frazier, what happens if Nate Frazier gets hurt?
What's after that? Name the guy. Who is it?
Name him. Both the Robinsons got kids have been hurt and they're recovering from injuries, and they really haven't produced yet at that level.
Right.
That you know what you're going to get. You got Cash Jones, who is a kind of a he's got his role. He's a role player as a running back. So who is that? Dwight Phillips he's kind of a gadget player in a way. We'll see what he does.
Player. I don't think that's unfair. Yeah.
And so it's interesting. I mean, they need somebody to Bo Walker. The reports we're hearing from the first week is the physicality, the you cannot get him to the ground. The
contact.
Yes. Yeah. Is like almost surprising to what people have seen. And so you just don't know. You can see players in high school. Sometimes you put them in a whole different environment where the standard is different, and you have the ability to get in the weight room, to get reps on your own, to push yourself. Those guys who are in that mental space, you don't always know it until you know it. And so maybe he's one of those guys. If it sounds like when we heard this just the first week of spring practice, that he's that kind of dude. Yeah. And I did not expect that.
I didn't either. You know, the similarities. So he's squat. He's 5'9". He's 5'9", over 200 pounds, you know, really packs a serious punch at the point of contact, has short, stubby legs, kind of like Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders both had those types of builds where they were low to the ground, and it gave them great contact balance.
Yep. And Georgia has shown you they always need depth at the running back, because, man, those guys get dinged up pretty easy. I failed to mention Chauncey Bowens. I think he could be a good running back this year. He may be running back number 2.
He's 2. He's got to be 2 right now, right? He has
right
to be.
There.
There ain't nobody else.
So depending on what the health is of the Robinsons, and so that's good news coming out of a freshman coming in and immediately being ready to play. The other freshman that has gotten a lot of publicity before this year and in the recruiting cycle, and then in the first few weeks is Elijah Griffin, that defensive tackle who was the number. Was he number 3 in the country?
3 in the country, 1 in Georgia, something like that.
And just an elite defensive tackle prospect. And we even had, I think it was Warren Brinson, come out in an interview last week saying that he's Jalen Carter-esque. Yeah. And if you say that to Georgia fans, we're going to jump on it. Okay, please tell me more.
Well, what I'm hearing is SEC ready. You know, a lot of times these guys, especially your bigs, when they come in, they're big for the wrong reasons, right? You know, you get a kid comes in, he's 330. Well, it's the wrong 80 pounds of that or 60 pounds of that is the wrong weight. He's got to go in and get to serious work. What we keep hearing about Elijah is he's SEC. His body is SEC ready right now, and he's showing that. When you've got guys even invoking the name of Jalen Carter, that is something to pay attention to, because there's only one Jalen Carter. There will always only be one Jalen Carter. But I'm dead serious about this. It doesn't matter what edge rushers you have. It doesn't matter what linebackers you have. It doesn't matter what secondary you have. If you've got a game wrecker in the middle that can collapse the line of scrimmage, your defense is immediately better. And I would say that is the only position that makes everybody significantly better is the interior rush. If you have a dominant guy, a guy that can just collapse a pocket, it changes everything for every position. And so, yeah, I believe it. I've got this written down right here from a guy. It says, Elijah Griffin has looked every bit the part of a 5-star prodigy. That's what I have written down in my notes right here. So
we're looking forward to that because you just can't. I mean, there's just no price tag on those elite defensive linemen who just cause havoc in the middle. And Georgia's shown you, in the past that's the guys they really. Kirby Smart, of course, as a defensive coach, he puts a lot of emphasis on that, and that's where if they're going to spend money, that's kind of where you need to spend it. And the other freshman I've heard somewhat about is that Isaiah Gibson as well. He's one of the top defensive ends in the country. Yeah, added some good weight, and we'll see. Those are really the two pearls of that defensive recruiting class this past year, and they both came to campus and look ready to play, look ready to get in there and get some snaps. Hopefully, I look at things a little differently. I want to see those guys play. I'm excited to see them play. But the wisdom in terms of coaching will tell you that if you got too many freshmen playing, right, you're gonna pay the price for that at some point. You don't. But in today's that's the kind of balance you have to figure out because in today's football, you got to play them. They might be gone in 3 years, or they might be gone in 1 year if you don't get any playing time.
Yeah,
in times past, Mooch, you didn't play your first 2 years. Your junior and senior year was your time to shine.
Yeah, I think back to you can see it recently. Nolan Smith is a prime example. What number one player coming out of college? Period. Number one player,
one of the top rated players of all time.
Right.
In terms of high school players, yes.
Exactly. And, he played extremely sparingly his freshman year, and you could see athleticism, but he wasn't even a shadow of the player he was when he left Georgia and was drafted in the first round. Not even the same thing. I think he came in at 220 pounds. It might have been 219 pounds. He was not the same player. He needed those years of development, and so many players are robbing themselves of that by chasing an NIL bag after a year somewhere. Nolan Smith, who, by the way, just won a Super Bowl, right? Yeah. Nolan Smith stayed at Georgia. Number one player, did not come right in and start. He worked his way up, and he modeled himself into a different player than all of us envisioned. Who would have thought you'd look at a guy that was 220 pounds his senior year of high school and say, this will be the immovable edge setter for a Georgia national championship? You would have never thought about that, and yet he was. Remarkable against the run.
He takes on pulling guards and whatever sends his way in NFL and just with force and stands them up. And you're like, good gracious, what some kind of a impact that was for a man his size who will take
puts 4.3 speed right in their chest. Is what he does.
I will say that people like Nolan Smith, the mindset and the mental, the ambition, everything that he has about him as it makes him a player, very rare. Yeah. Nolan's had all the intangibles, and those kind of players you just covet, and you don't really know you got them until you got them. And maybe
that's a good point.
you can do all the scouting you want, and you can scout their parents and their coaches and all that, and you hope you get those top players, but. These guys are human, and it's just a process. We hope some of these guys that came in this year with Griffin and Gibson are those top players, and it'll be up to them to prove it. And if they don't prove it, guess what? They'll be either depth pieces,
right,
or they'll be moved on down to another school to try to prove themselves. That's okay. Georgia's always told their players that if you can find a better opportunity somewhere else, that's up to you. We'll advocate for you.
Yeah.
And we'll help you find a better spot.
Well, so far, Troop Brinson, we don't see many players leave Georgia and then they go somewhere and you're like, how did we lose them? A.D. Mitchell would probably be the big exception. And that was, you're going to be a daddy to your little girl. That's fine with us. Go kill it.
In your home state. Yeah.
In your home state. Yeah. Go get it. That's fine. It sucked because it cost us a national championship. But but we totally get it. But for the most part, we talked about Bear Alexander earlier. Bear Alexander had 2 sacks in the national championship
That
game.
hurt when we saw he was leaving.
And
We're
we
like,
saw
no,
that.
no, this can't be true. They'll get him back. No, he ain't leaving. We
Yeah.
hated it. Then the details started coming out
Yep.
about he just didn't come back from spring break.
Right.
And there was some problems in the locker room.
In the locker room.
With
And then
him and Van Pran. And so it was like, okay, maybe he's not the best,
Right.
personality or just, for this team.
And let me ask you this. How many championships or titles or conference championships has he won since he left Georgia?
Well, he's at his 3rd college, much like he was in high school. He was not a player that stayed anywhere.
He was in 4 high schools, right?
And it was, very similar. So, if these coaching staff, with the deep pockets they do have, and whether you know it or not, they got deep pockets. If they got to keep a player and it takes a certain amount of money, if they really want him, they'll put an offer up there. They can keep a player. They can.
That's right.
But they know more about some of these situations than we do. They know more because they're at practice. They know more because they are. And I'm not saying that you can't question Kirby Smart and some of his coaches, because we can and we do. But when we're faced with making a tough decision in terms of our opinion, and we don't have the information that really is necessary, I will always hedge to a coaching staff who has proven it. Now, if it was coaching staff, this was Atlanta Falcons coaching staff, I'm different.
They're still not going to draft. They're still not going to draft a Bulldog, guys. Stop getting excited. It's not going to happen.
But if it's the little Georgia Bulldog coaching staff, I'm gonna tend to believe, first of all, what they're selling me or what the decisions they make until there's a pattern or, and then it always comes back to your success. And Georgia's proven the success.
Right.
Even when they don't win national championship, they've proven they are a successful program. And the standards and players will tell you that. You hear players talk. You hear GMs talk from the NFL. You hear other coaches talk about Georgia. They hadn't won a championship in 2 years, or they won the SEC championship last year, but they haven't won a national championship since 2023.
Right.
Or is it 2022? Yeah. And but they have that track record, and they got the main man, Kirby Smart. So I'll believe that until there's enough reasonable evidence to say, and maybe we need to, I trust myself more than I trust. I'm not a coach. I just have opinions like most fans, and we all do. It's okay in the heat of the battle to kind of question stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of these personnel decisions and coaching decisions, if Kirby Smart thought that Bobo was or Stacey Searles needed to go, there's lots of people who are knocking on the door.
Yeah,
coach at Georgia.
Right. And the problem with Kirby, I mean, if you're going to point to Kirby weaknesses, it's never been personnel. He's always been a step ahead of everybody with personnel and guys on his staff. That's never been a problem. Now, if you want to say the defensive scheme is complicated and sometimes players look like they're thinking instead of reacting, that's a fair criticism of Kirby Smart. That's fair. However, when you put it together like they did in 2021, it's hard to argue with the absolute masterpiece that defense is. There are fair criticisms and things we can talk about, but when it comes to personnel on his staff, that's never been one. So to act like out of nowhere, he's just going to decide, hey, I want to have bro time, and it's going to cost us a few national championships. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it at all.
Yeah, he could pay Bobo enough or just Bobo's got enough money. Bobo could just hang out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hang out on the sideline with you guys and just enjoy, retirement.
There is no one that gets fired in college football that the Atlanta Falcons will not hire to a huge contract. So he'd be good. He wouldn't even have to move far. He'd be fine.
Yeah. And there's lots of coaches already on Georgia's coaching staff. You can name them.
Yeah.
You can look at Glenn Schumann. You can look at Trey Scott. Some of those guys, Hartley, I guarantee you, they've had offers to go either to bigger or better position or I guess a step ups in positions or to the NFL.
We should mention that Georgia's staff is the same for 2 straight years. That is, you know how rare that is in upper level SEC play? Their staff is basically staying the same. What did we lose? A quarterback's coach. Is that right? Is that a quarterback's
we lost
assistant?
Montgomery.
Gummy.
Went to the NFL. So, they like him, but not a difference maker.
Right.
But that's going to happen. You're going to have attrition when you're successful. If nobody's knocking on your door, you're probably not doing a very good job.
Right.
Anyway. So I think we're going to take a look at some more specifically position groups because this is just the first week of spring practice.
Yeah.
And as we get more information in, and we already kind of got an idea. We've already laid the framework out to talk about some different position groups in the personnel, and it'll help to get a little bit more information in terms of the performance and as spring goes along. So I think that's what we're going to do. It's kind of our intention this spring to talk about different position groups and how the depth chart is going to stack up, and what our expectations are. You know, the ceilings and the floors of some of these players, because there's some questions, and there always are, because players, you know, in college they don't stay long anyway. They're gone one way or the other. So we're looking forward to that and talking that through spring.
And spring games in what, 4 weeks? Is that right?
Yeah,
it's not long.
It's not long at all. You're right.
Yeah.
So they're getting into it, and hopefully they stay healthy. We always think that, but Georgia's always going to have players because they practice so hard. They're going to get dinged up.
Yeah.
And it was the latest injury I did hear is one of the wide receivers, Tyler Williams. With an ankle injury. Yeah. And we'll be sidelined for the rest of the spring.
Yeah, I messaged him last night, actually. We were talking about that. Yeah.
Yep. At least it wasn't like one of the guys I really want to see, like Talon Taylor or CJ Wiley. When I saw that come across, Georgia wide receiver injured, it's like, don't be CJ Wiley or Talon Taylor.
They know how to get clicks, don't they? Because they could have put his name at the top and you'd been fine.
Like, even though I feel bad for Tyler Williams, the two guys I really want to see get on the field are those I mentioned right
Here it is. You want a quick breakdown of those two. CJ Wiley is the most SEC-ready wide receiver that's come to Georgia as a freshman in about 15 years, in terms of being ready to go now. Talon Taylor is one of the more talented that's been there since A.J. Green. That's kind of how it's going to break down. Like C.J. Wiley, his route running is insane for a teenager.
He's just so long and wiry and strong.
Yeah. And so C.J. Wiley he's just ready to go. I really think he could start. He's not, because of what's coming in. Oh, by the way, welcome back, Colby Young.
Reinstated, yes.
Yeah, welcome back, buddy. But yeah, those two with Wiley and Talon, they offer two completely different skill sets. They're both big, and one is, like I said, the route running in high school is almost non-existent because it's just about being a better athlete than everybody. But the cat can run routes. You'll see. I don't know how much play he's going to get early at Georgia, but when his route, he's going to look. I'll say this: C.J. Wiley is going to look wide open a lot this year when he gets into the game, and you're not going to know why. And it's because he's breaking people's ankles with those routes.
Yeah, and he had some late in his high school career, the playoffs. He had some just sensational games. I think in a championship game, he just took over. Yeah, and I'd question his recruitment a bit. It, like he was trending towards Tennessee for a while. Right. And I heard his speed was questioned, and you know, anytime a player from that you're recruiting kind of trends toward another team, you start picking apart. Wow, you maybe don't want him. It's kind of what happens with all teams. But I was like, okay, I won't worry if we lose out on C.J. Wiley. There's a couple other guys I really want to look at. But then the more and more I watched him play, kind of like Ethan Barbour, both of those guys are cats who are just, I think, can be sensational wide receivers. They could if you needed them, they could both come in right now as a freshman and be very, very productive. It's just depending on if Georgia needs them and where they stack up in terms of competition. It's always a competition. And but I'm really bullish on both of those guys, and more, like you said with C.J. Wiley, I just think he might be one of those gamer type guys you can't keep off the field.
I agree, and I think we'll see it. The routes are just not natural, and I don't care what his speed is, and it may be. I heard that too about his questions about his speed. I don't care if he's a 4.6 guy. It doesn't matter when you run routes like he does. It just doesn't. There's a lot of guys in the NFL Hall of Fame today that didn't run 4.4s either. Receiver's a position. If you can play it, you can play it. Yeah. And he's plenty athletic enough. Not a concern at all.
All right. Well, it's good to get back on the air tonight, Smooch. And I know our fans have been asking where you guys been and when can we expect. I've had people ask.
That's a long answer, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah. We're back, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Yes,
and bring you guys some good content for the spring. That's all I got. I know we covered a good bit, and we'll look forward to covering some more position groups as the spring rolls on. We'll be watching it. And again, good luck to the Georgia basketball team as they take on Gonzaga in the first round of the NCAA playoffs. And,
Come on.
And Diamond Dogs keep going. We love to see what's going on there in West Johnson.
Loving it, man.
All right, for Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Brinson saying so long. We'll see you soon.
This is the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch.
Dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show. It's the dog show.
What a magical episode.
Masterpiece.